I've asked the industry to get around the table and settle these disputes as quickly as we can, but the government won't allow that. I think they want to keep disputes going as part of their agenda because they don't really know what to do. They're incompetent and they don't really understand where the mood music is at the moment. We've achieved a modest pay offer. It doesn't match the rate of inflation that we've been subject to. But the difference between this and previous versions of offers is it's unconditional. We were told at the start of the dispute and this process that we would have to accept the closure of all our ticket offices, driver-only operation, extension of working hours. They wanted to change and dilute our railway pension scheme and a whole raft of measures. We haven't conceded one of those items, not any of them. But we've got an unconditional pay offer, which is backdated for 20 months, which is nearly 2 years of back pay coming to our members on their earnings. And we've got a guarantee of no compulsory redundancies through to the end of next year. So it's a step forward, and the companies will go now into a process with us starting next February for 3 months of fixed time negotiations. And we'll see at the end of that whether there are agreements. We will have the option then, if there's not an agreement and the companies want to push forward with those changes without our agreement, whether there is a fresh dispute. But as we've seen over the last year or so, everything can change. We may have a different government by then. We may have all sorts of changes. So if I was in their position, I wouldn't press so hard because our members will resist these changes. The public are not on the side of the government, as we've seen with the ticket offices, and we want to get back to running the railway, earning a decent living and benefiting from the conditions that we've negotiated. And if we can do that, there's no need for strike action.
Right. I mean, you're sounding fairly cautious, fairly restrained on this question of closing ticket offices. That seems to have gone off the table. And as you say, a lot of people, not just your union and your members, didn't like the idea of seeing those ticket offices closed. Do you think that could come back, or is it over?
Well, that seems to be over. They've been defeated on that overwhelmingly. 1 million people responded. I don't think there were any positive responses apart from Grant Shapps and his friends. So that's been defeated, and I can't see that coming back. They still want us to have lower rates of pay going forward. They actually want to reduce the rate of pay on the railway. They want to change all of our agreements on working time, on our sick pay, and all that kind of stuff that is important to people in any industry. But they basically want to make us like outsourced workers. And many people in this country are tired of that precarious work, bogus self-employment, agency work in gig economy. And we don't want to go that way. We want regular working arrangements, decent conditions that we can negotiate, and a decent rate of pay. That's all we're after, and we'll run the railway in return for that. And if they can leave us alone for a bit, we can get on with running the railway for the public. But it depends how hard they want to push it in the new year.
Well, the tone of that, Mick, sounds like this is just a temporary respite, and you're fully prepared, maybe even half expecting more disputes, more strikes in the future, but with the current deal still on the table and unresolved.
Well, it is an interim deal, John. There will be 6 months where there'll be no strikes. And in that, there will be a fixed 3-month period of discussions. It depends how hard they want to push that agenda. They haven't succeeded in getting any of their agenda across the table. There have been no job cuts, no changes to our conditions over the last 2 years because there was a build-up before we went on strike. We are still in that position. We will negotiate change, but we will not allow it to be imposed on us to our members' detriment. So if people want to work with us, they can work with us, and we can reform the industry. We can look at changes that don't cut our members' terms and conditions to pieces. So we don't want to go on strike, but we are an able union. We're serious people. We will negotiate. But if they want a conflict, they'll get it back in response. So my advice is let's get round the table. Let's do sensible negotiations, get an agreement and move our industry forward.
Okay, so what the rail travelling public want to know, of course, Mick, is their train going to be there when they need to get on a train? So for now, 6 months, you're no longer at war. ASLEF, the drivers' union, are still in dispute. What's it all going to mean for our rail services?
Well, ASLEF are still in dispute. We've got some train drivers that are still involved in that. ASLEF are the majority union. They haven't had an offer like ours. They haven't had an unconditional offer, which is what they're seeking. So I would advise the government and their agents in the train operating companies to make the drivers an unconditional offer, and we'll see what we can make of that. I know that train drivers want to operate the trains. They want to work in safe environment and operate the trains for the public. So let's get on with that. I've asked the industry to get around the table and settle these disputes as quickly as we can. But the government won't allow that. I think they want to keep disputes going as part of their agenda because they don't really know what to do. They're incompetent and they don't really understand where the mood music is at the moment. So my advice to the government, if they want to listen, is let's resolve these disputes and get on with running our railway on behalf of our people.
All right. Mick Lynch, good to talk to you as ever. Thank you, leader of the RMT Union.